Chapter 10. On the way home, my mother kept shaking her head from being so astonished. "I can't believe you kept that a secret all week, honey. You were so amazing." My dad capped my eye in the mirror and winked. "She even more amazing than you know," he told my mother. "Yep, we have a very talented daughter here. Sport, we are so proud of you." Then he looked over at my mom and raised his eyebrows. She nodded and smiled. "Are you tired, Clementine?" she asked, "or do you think you could stay up a little later than usual?" "I'm not tired," I said. "Do you need me to spy on the sitter? Make sure she doesn't smoke cigars or order things from the shopping channel? Do you think she's making phone calls to Australia? I might be a private detective when I grow up." "No," said my dad. "The sitter's fine. We were wondering if you wanted to come to dinner with us at the Ritz instead." "Really?" I asked. "What about the peanuts?" Usually when my parents go out, it's my job to make sure the babysitter doesn't bring any peanuts and leave them around. Broccoli is allergic, and even if he has one tiny peanut, he might have to go to the hospital with his neck all blown up or something. "We'll talk to the sitter," my dad said. "I don't know," I said. "My brother never had been left with a sitter without me to save his life." "It'll be all right, Clementine," my mother said. "We can trust the sitter to remember. We'd really like you to come. After all, we wouldn't even be going if it weren't for you." So I said okay, and we went home, and my parents got more dressed up. I didn't, because I already looked so great. My mom put on her new shoes, and I thought my dad was going to hurt his head from smacking it and saying, "Wow." When the babysitter came, my parents told her about the peanuts. Then I told her and told her and told her too. Then my dad looked at his watch and said, "We have reservations." So we said goodbye. But when we got to the lobby, I couldn't leave. "Wait here." I hurried back to our apartment, got one of my mom's permanent markers, and wrote on my brother's forehead, "No peanuts for me," in big blue capital letters. Then I felt all right. On the way to the restaurant, my parents asked me what I wanted for dinner. They always do this so I don't have to look at a menu and have the not choosing problem. "A hamburger and mashed potatoes," I said. "I'm on it," said my dad. And he was. My parents ordered food I had never heard of. Then the waiter said, "And for the young lady," which was me. My dad ordered some more food I had never heard of, but when it came, it was a hamburger and mashed potatoes. Excuse me," I said very politely. "May I also order some crackers?" The waiter shook his head. "Sadly, there are no Ritz crackers at the Ritz. It's one of the deepest mysteries of the universe." I didn't want him to feel embarrassed about that, so I told him I still liked his restaurant. "And I think you're a really good waiter, too, very empathetic," which he was, because all night long he figured out everything I was going to want, and I never had to go up to the counter to ask for more anything, even ketchup. For instance, exactly when we were all done with our meal and I was wondering about dessert, he magically appeared. "I recommend 3 desserts tonight," he said. "The Boston cream pie, the creme brulee, and the velvet chocolate cake are all especially good." I could see my parents thinking, "Oh no, here comes the choosing thing." But while the waiter was describing the desserts to us, his pencil drifted down to my menu and tapped one of the desserts for just an instant. I looked up and he winked. "I'll have the velvet chocolate cake," I said. My parents made I don't believe it faces at each other. Then they ordered the other 2 desserts. My dad's was creme brulee, which is French for vanilla custard that's been blasted on the top with a blowtorch. I am not even kidding about that. My mother's was the Boston cream pie, which came decorated with clementine slices. "The clementine," said the waiter, "is the sweetest fruit, is it not?" My mother laughed and nodded at me. I've always thought so. She took one bite of her dessert and then said, "I just can't do it. I'm too full." My dad took one bite of his dessert, and he said, "Me too. I'm stuffed." Then they both pushed their plates over to me. So there I was at the Ritz, no crackers restaurant with 3 desserts. "I think this is the luckiest day of my life," I told my parents. Then my mother whispered, "Take off your sneakers." So I did, and then secretly, under the table, she took off her purple dragonfly not very sensible wow shoes and slid them over to me, and for the rest of the meal I wore them, which nobody knew because I kept them under the tablecloth, even when the waiter came over to bring me more whipped cream. Okay, fine. When the waiter came over to bring me more whipped cream, it is possible one of the dragonflies was peeking out.